I want to show the settings that are relevant to daylight or solar studies inside Revit and how you can control them. So first thing I want to point out is the location of your building in the real world. Analyze tab and location. You can type in the project address and it will place this red marker at that location. So for example here, 223 Heather Street, Manchester, New Hampshire. That's placed that where the building is. If I roll forward, you'll see that the map actually kind of shows this is the Zimmerman house, the one that we're looking at. You can move that around to position it where you want, and from that you get the latitude and longitude. If I move over it, you'll see it shows latitude and longitude, the project address as I defined it. You also see weather stations close by that have data accumulated over many years. These are usually on a grid that is 8 miles or 12 kilometers square, and covers almost every location in the world. Not parts of the Arctic, Antarctic, but pretty typically most locations that you're likely to encounter. If you, depending on your Windows browser, you may even be able to, for example, select on a street view and take a look at what was recorded for the house. So there I can see the small windows that are high up on the wall and underneath the eave on the north side of the house. That's the location established, and also if you've got the MEP product enabled, you'll be able to see the weather data that comes from the weather file. I'll close that out. What I want you to see next is that you can orient the site according to the way it's oriented in the real world. So if I look on here, oops, sorry, let me so what I want you to see is that you can orient the building the way that it is in the real world, and that's done through controlling a setting in the project base point, where you can specify what the direction is to true north. So this was angled at 30 degrees from true north. If I just set that back to 0, you can see that would be kind of the same as the sheets in the project, but my real location is relative to true north is that this setting is 30 degrees. Now just to show you, it would mean that, for example, on this site plan, that's probably the only ones where I'd be saying to it, it's not project north that I want to see, which is how my sheets are laid out, but true north, where I'm actually seeing it oriented correctly. The view doesn't have to be showing it, it's the setting has to exist, so that value has to be entered. If I go to my 3D view here, and I've switched off the roof so that I can see my floors, I want to point out that there's a way to control the time of year and time of day for the position of the sun. So it's here, the sun path and sun settings. And if you look on here at the moment, you'll see that what I've got in the project is a still study is like just one date and time, and then the shadows part means that if there was no topography, and there is topography in this project, it would show the shadows lying at a particular level, the ground level. If there is topography, the shadows will show on the topography. So for example, if I say equinox at 3 p.m. I need to turn on the shadows so I can see it. So what I'm seeing is 3 p.m. and I can see, from with the roof off, I can kind of see how much light is getting into, or where the shadows fall inside my project. I can see the small openings on the north side, large openings on the south side. So back to the sun settings again, which is something you control for your analysis, is that I can be saying, what if it was the winter solstice, and I can say apply, spring equinox, apply. Maybe I'm going to visit the site and I want to see what it would be like on a particular day, April 30th. And I can also specify a time. So I did there is, I can change the time to whatever I want it to be. To make my changes. So say a site visit, winter solstice at 4 p.m. These I name according to the settings, so it's a bit easier to follow. So in the summer, not much penetration. Remember, this is just looking at the 3D model with the roof turned off. There's other techniques that we'll use for the analysis. Equinox or equinox at 9 a.m. or 3 p.m. Also in here, you see you can save settings for a single day study or a multiple day study. So the reason I'm showing that, I've got another project open, which is a template that you might use for analysis. And what I want to show is that you can actually move some content from a project or a template file into your Revit projects as you work. So once you've created them one time, you don't need to do it again and again and again. And we often create templates for customers related to whatever tasks they want to complete. So if I just go back for a second here, if I just show you under single day I've got nothing, what I can do is I can say under the Manage tab, I can say Transfer Project Standards. That's the template file that I had open. Check none. The only thing that I'm interested in are the sun settings. That's all I'm bringing in from the other file. So when I say OK, and I'm just going to bring in the ones that are new, not anything that already exists. Now if I go back to my sun settings down here under the single day, you see that what I've got is a summer solstice solar study, for example, that I can say apply, and I need to say OK just so I can get back to those controls. So here what I can do is say preview that solar study, and then click the play button that's on these like VCR controls, and what I see is the path of the sun as it moves across the sky. Probably more useful there would be, I've got it set up at 15-minute intervals and from sunrise to sunset. So 6:19 the sun comes up, and what I can do is I can be moving forward at sorry, go back to the beginning, and what I'm doing is moving forward one frame at a time. So sorry, the sun coming up at 4:09 a.m. in the summer, and what I'm doing is moving at 15-minute intervals to see where the shadows would be falling in my building. So summer, I'm going to get light in the building very early, right? So so summer I'm going to get light in the building from 7:09, and what I can do is kind of move forward to see how that changes during the course of the day. Remember though that this is the 3D model with the roof turned off. There's other techniques that I'll show you about doing an actual analysis where you're taking account of the fact that there's additional shading from the roofs and ceilings and so on. So that is sun settings. The other thing is, if I go to say a 3D view, maybe looking towards the fireplace and the gallery here, right? If I'm looking at that, I can have sun settings in here, right? So if I go back to say still, spring equinox, apply, there's my shadows here, winter solstice, there I'm getting them into the room. So it's useful to help me understand the building. Also useful, and the last part of this here would be on the rendering settings. You can specify where your camera is. So this would be an interior because the camera is interior to the building, and then you can choose what you want here. So if I'm gonna do sun and I'll do artificial only as an example. So if I'm rendering on the cloud or even in the product, I'll just type in RR and do this very quickly in the product. What I'd expect to see here is that it's only calculating for the rendering using the internal lights. Right? So you see that I'm only seeing the light coming from here and the other lights that are on the north side of the building and one that's on the roof. Now this is for presentation purposes only. You can go in here and you can adjust exposure to make it light or dark. That's like letting your eye adjust to the lighting conditions. But this is not measuring real values on the surfaces of the model. That's something that we'll do later. But you do have the option in here of when you're doing these calculations, do you want to use artificial lights, and which ones do you want to have switched on or off? And in the view, are you interested in the three options, just daylighting, or just the sun and artificial lights, or just artificial lights by themselves? So that's another setting that's important in your project. So let me stop there, and we'll continue to do an illuminance study of this building.